This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening. I'm Sabrina Brown. Thank you for joining us. A bill to extend certain tax exemptions under the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement debated in Parliament today. The bill will allow a further 3 months extension of taxation benefits from February 4th. The nation's leader led off the debate, expressing optimism for the nation's second city. As the committee to review the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement continues its work regarding certain taxation benefits for the city of Freeport, the nation's leader, Prime Minister Perry Christie, says some critical recommendations were made by the committee in the initial report submitted to the government.
The conditions, Mr. Speaker, include within 1 year of extension to secure an international investor with the capacity to purchase a majority ownership of GBPA, that's the Grand Bahama Port Authority, and to enable it to properly meet its obligations and development commitments.
Mr. Christie says the government is in agreement with that recommendation.
The government is fully aware and fully committed to the recognition that we need new blood in Freeport, we need new leadership in Freeport, and the government is dedicated, Mr. Speaker, to bringing that about.
He says the committee is of the view that there must be a development plan for Grand Bahama going forward, and that the government should play a greater role.
The committee has recommended that we have an equity interest, that is, the government becomes a part owner of the assets that make up the Grand Bahama Port Authority and the Port Group of companies, the Port Group Limited, Mr. Speaker.
The nation's chief says the success of Freeport will pave the way for the further development of other areas on the island. He says the government is relentlessly pursuing opportunities that will benefit the people of West Grand Bahama.
We would be able to, again, add to the debate for Grand Bahama that is driven by Freeport, Mr. Speaker. We will add to that by being able to say, in addition to those developments like Memories and the new port for Carnival and Deepwater Key, Six Senses, Mr. Speaker, that we will also have, Mr. Speaker, a major impactful development in the west of Grand Bahama.
The Minister for Grand Bahama, the Honorable Dr. Michael Darville, says intense negotiations are taking place concerning Grand Bahama. Minister Darville recently traveled to Europe to address issues regarding potential investments that will affect the future growth of this island.
The Prime Minister, in moving this bill, clearly articulated the government's position and gave a glimpse of what is to come. It is important to note that we are still in the negotiation process with investors and stakeholders. But moving forward, things will begin to move at a more rapid pace. And over the next 3 months, we will resolve many of these complex issues that face the island of Grand Bahama.
On the issue of the expiring provisions of the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement, Dr. Darville says there have been many complexities surrounding the extension of the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement negotiations, but he says the government is seeking to ensure that this is done in the best interest of Grand Bahamians.
Mr. Speaker, there is still more input that is required in order to provide the Cabinet with the information it needs to effectively and intellectually and not impulsively make the necessary decisions that's in front of us. I am of the firm belief, Mr. Speaker, that in the next 3 months of this extension period, which we are sorting to attain, this administration is taking the appropriate steps to ensure that we will not make the same mistakes that the former administration did in 1993, as we seek to chart a more equitable path for the Bahamian people moving forward, which will positively impact the present and future economic growth of the island of Grand Bahama.
The 21-year-old woman arrested at the Grand Bahama International Airport this week for cocaine possession was arraigned before the court this morning. Alexandra J. Ann Franks, a resident of New Providence, appeared before Magistrate Andrew Forbes in the nation's capital. She was charged with possession of dangerous drugs with the intent to supply. On that charge, she was sentenced to 2 years behind bars and 15 months on the charge of taking preparatory steps to export dangerous drugs. The sentences are to run concurrently. Franks was taken into custody on Tuesday. Police say the woman was searched at the U.S. pre-clearance section and 4.6 pounds of cocaine was discovered in her bag. Meanwhile, 3 Nassau men accused of raping a Bimini woman back in February of 2014 were freed of those charges yesterday. The men, Desmond Greenslade, alias DJ, Natiko Simonet, also known as Junior, and Charmer Cox, also known as Yellow, were found not guilty by a unanimous vote of 9-0. A 9-member jury took less than 2 hours to deliver the not guilty verdict. Initially, 7 young men were charged with the alleged rape, but last week the court directed that those men be discharged. A Grand Bahama-based Christian ministry is joining the fight against crime. This ministry is partnering with 2 vital agencies, and they have great faith that this initiative will change lives.
I brought my Bible and I'm declaring the word. I'm a word in action.
I Brought My Bible campaign is a major community initiative launched by Ricardo Grant Ministries and is now sweeping through the Western District. The goal is to get hard copies of the Bible into the hands and homes of people around the island.
It has gotten to the place now that we have been challenged with technology, and we are not to the point where we are anti-technology, but we have gotten to the place where we have replaced carrying sacred scripture, carrying the word, the holy scripture, to our iPads, to our phones, and we have reduced God down to an app. You know what I'm saying? A slide and a tap.
Bishop Ricardo Grant led a walkabout through the Sea Grape community on Tuesday, and he says they plan to touch every community throughout Grand Bahama.
I believe the major problem that we are having in the midst of the citizens of the King, believers, is we have a lot of people reading but not understanding what they're reading. Don't even know, how do I read word? How do I study the Bible? So these sessions are geared towards not only giving them a comprehensive way to disseminate God's truth and to study the word, but also to taking them deeper into word.
As the government continues to implement initiatives to combat the crime wave in this country, Bishop Grant believes this Bible campaign will help to eliminate the social ills permeating society.
This is where we start reaching our people and reaching our citizens, reaching our youths, building character, getting to the point where they understand how to move in conflict resolutions, getting to the point where there is an alternative to the life and the lifestyles that they have been falling to. And something, when you talk about even fighting crime and criminality and all of that, it starts with word.
Bishop Grant Ministries is partnering with the Royal Bahamas Police Force and local government as they work to take this island back to the Bible.
Even as we walk through and we touch our people, we touch homes, we're going to come up against situations and circumstance that needs addressing. We're going to have the necessary agencies. The Royal Bahamas Police Force in the Commissioner's initiative is dealing with what we consider to being a walk of faith, which means joining faith-based organization as such, like we are.
Stay with us, there's more news after this.